Okay, so we're coming into the last few days of February. I've been sharing a lot of my work on my Well-Regulated Militia series for Black History Month. And I have another little series within a series that I want to share. Hopefully in the last couple of days here, I'll be able to get a few of these up to par. Leading the charge, so to speak, would be John Brown. I already did share this drawing a while back, but I'm going to share it again because it's important to this realization that I had. Victoria Woodhull is another one of the people. You won't recognize that name probably. I didn't up till a few days ago, and that's on purpose. That's part of what I'm talking about here. And then lastly is Harriet Beecher Stowe. But the hashtag would be white people in Black history. And I think it's important because we don't have, there's this gulf between the time, like these were men of their times. There's this excuse that's made as if this morality had to blossom and be understood. And the founding fathers, being slave owners, there's this anachronistic apology that is allowed to them because, they were just men of their time. Well, John Brown was there. John Brown stands firmly, swinging a flaming sword, saying, no, it doesn't matter. And so it's like right now when I start to record this, it's like, what information do I have? What direction do I have with doing this video? And it's like, it comes back down to just the spirit, the individual. So the Constitution, for instance, we have a Constitution, but the Constitution, as it was written by the founding fathers, allowed for slaves. So the Constitution was wrong. Period. So what's your inner Constitution? Declaration of Independence wasn't for all people. Look at how natives are talked about in these founding documents. They're savages, right? Then this is, of course, shortly after they were already praised. But when it's convenient to call someone a savage, then we call them a savage. So what's your inner Declaration of Independence? So in a way, we don't need John Brown or Harriet Beecher Stowe. We don't need Susan B. Anthony fighting her fight. We don't need those people in history to tell ourselves what's right because they didn't have anyone telling them what was right. You don't necessarily need your Bible or your Quran or anything. It's what is your spirit telling you. This is innate to me. This is when the birds fly south for the winter, they don't read it in a book. It's instinct. So what are our human, not our base animal tribal things telling us, but what are our higher human qualities that call us into being a greater human being? What are those saying to us? So in that regard, this white people in Black history, it still is important because I think because it illustrates the reality that there's been something working against the grain here. So if you look at John Brown, for instance, look at how he's handled in history books. In traditional, commonplace history, John Brown is marginalized. He's called crazy, terrorist even, right? But, it makes me think of Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. He was a doctor in a Nazi concentration camp, observing and talking about these things. Man's Search for Meaning is an excellent book, but in it he says, that abnormal reaction to abnormal behavior, or an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation can be considered normal behavior. Sorry, I messed that up. But so an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation can be considered normal behavior. So if John Brown was crazy, that's the signpost. He was crazy. He seemed crazy because of the times. But if white people understand that there are other white people in history that they can look up to, it might help us with this gulf where it's like, no, we don't need to make excuses for slave owning founding fathers. We can say, I would have been John Brown. That would have been my motif. That would have been my energy. That's where I would have stood. So I think this white people in black history is just a way for me to say, hey, there have been people that we can look up to and we can use as examples when we need them, if we need them. Like I said, at the end of the day, we should be able to find that alignment here, our inner constitution, our inner declaration of independence. But when it comes to time when we need it, or at the very least when we're going to talk about the full scope of the history, then we should champion these people. John Brown should be on the $5 bill, right? Harriet Tubman is going on the 20. Let's get these things all the way articulated so that we don't harbor this guilt. That's part of the guilt. You're not even telling the full story. You're marginalizing and burying people who stood for what people stand for now. So of course there's going to be a dissidence. That's my piece. Peace.